Welcome to Mediator Musings. The podcast series is produced by Mediation Institute to provide a self-serve way for dispute resolution students and professionals to consider basic and more advanced concepts related to our work. I'm Joanne Law, Director of Mediation Institute. I'll often be joined on these talks by Ken Speakman, our Director of Applied Learnings, and other Mediation Institute members or mediation industry professionals. We'll be sharing our insights about what makes mediation such an effective way of de-escalating and resolving disputes and the art and science of mediation. You can join the conversation on Facebook on the Mediator Musings Facebook group. Okay. Hi, it's Joanne Law from Mediation Institute here with Ken Speakman. Hello, Ken. Welcome.
Hello, Joanne.
Thank you, Ken. And today we're going to talk about
maps. Yeah.
Maps. So what do you mean by maps? Are you talking about those old-fashioned bits of paper they used to print
That'd be fine.
roads on?
Or your GPS thingy.
Oh, yes.
That's a map as well.
Digital.
Now, in NLP, this all relates back to that in my opinion.
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes, not using jargon. Sorry about that. In neuro-linguistic programming, we refer to the map is not the territory. Now, people say, what do you mean by that? A map is not the territory. Look at your little GPS thing. It shows you the streets. It shows you where you are. In reality, the streets have trees, grass, cars, parked houses, all sorts of stuff. It can't represent it in a little navman. Otherwise, your navman would be as big as the world to show all the grass and dirt and dust and everything. So a map is a condensed version to show us the information we need at this particular point in time without the distractions. It makes sense?
It does. It does. So why does that matter? What's the significance of that?
The amount of information that comes into us at any point in time is overwhelming to most people. You don't see it as being overwhelming because what we're doing is we're generalizing a lot of what we're seeing, we're deleting a lot of stuff we're seeing, we're also distorting a lot of what we're seeing. So we get the little map, the little GPS map going into our brain. Whereas the real world isn't going to our brain. Otherwise, we wouldn't have enough storage for it all.
No.
We'd be as big as the world ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're actually, the way I like to refer to it personally is when you get a book, you look at a book, it's got all the information in it, and the back cover, it gives you a summary or a synopsis of the book. Our map is that synopsis of the book.
Yeah.
The book is all the details. What we understand is what's on the back cover.
Yeah. And
that is a very small amount of information.
Yeah, no, very true. And so for us as a mediator, particularly the summary information we got from, if you're doing a workplace mediation from the employer, it's not really going to be probably giving us enough detail about the history of what's happened. So
we get the overview, the generalization of what's happened. Exactly.
Yeah. So there's detail there that might be missed. And I guess in the same way, if the map that you need to get depends on the context. If you're going mountain climbing, you probably don't want just a street level map. You want to know what the topography is, what the contours are.
Exactly. It's a different sort of map for that particular occasion. The old street directory thing was great for finding where someone lives, but it doesn't tell you much about the heights or anything like this, which is happening at the time. Now,
exactly.
People respond to their map of reality, not to reality itself.
Yeah.
That's another NLP or neuro-linguistic programming teaching. Yeah. And so to change your responses, you change your map.
Yeah.
That's the best way of looking at how you do manipulation and change.
Yeah.
But the map is it's our perception, going back to the perception thing, of the world, but in a more global sort of view of that world, where we see that if I do X, the response is going to be Y. And if I do X and Z happens instead, what happened there? How come this happened? And a lot of people with their maps of their relationships start mind reading, and that's when they get trouble.
Yeah.
I know this person's going to do X when I do this, you do this, they do something different, how dare you? And there's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah,
because
absolutely.
our maps are different.
We start off as babies, brand new into the world without a map. We've got some biology, some instincts, things that help to keep us safe, but then we have to develop our map of the world. What happens when you do this? If it's a child that's born into an abusive environment, they might learn if they cry, they get hit, so they don't cry a lot. They're very quiet. They repress any emotions. Or they might be in an environment that's really nurturing, or maybe they might be in an environment that's excessively nurturing.
Any parent out there who's had a child that cries, you pick the child up to comfort it.
Yeah.
They learn that.
Yeah.
And before they're crying, just to get picked up and comforted.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're now ruled by this child's view of the world. I want some attention, so I'll cry. Along comes mummy or daddy, picks me up and go there.
Yeah.
That's their little map they've developed on how this works.
Absolutely, yeah. And
I think I prefer. That's not a good thing to do that, by the way.
And anyone who's been in the supermarket near the lolly aisle,
or the
they
toy
develop
aisle.
this specific tone of voice, which can produce results. And so
it's almost blackmail, isn't it?
It is.
I want this toy, and damn well if you say no, it's going to start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it depends on that parent's map of the world, how tolerant they are to judgmental looks by other people, what they're going to choose to do and or not do. That's our map of what to expect. So people that are raised in very unpredictable or dangerous environments, particularly unpredictable environments, they can develop particularly in family dispute resolution. We talk a lot about attachment and how people learn to relate to others. It's something that happens in children, and ideally in a healthy way, so that people have healthy connections and attachments with other people, their caregivers and potentially others. But for some kids, when they're raised in really unpredictable situation, so maybe their parents are drug addict or they've got a mental health disorder or something like that, so sometimes when the child does this, they get this response. Another time when they do the same thing, they get a completely different response, and they can't predict. That can create a really skewed map of the world, or a really fractured map.
Children need consistency.
Yeah.
You consistently give them the toy, or you consistently say no.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you've got to do it consistently. And the same about comparison, but even training a dog, you've got to be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the dog barks and you give it a treat, it'll bark again, and you go crook at it, it doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
The same with children, same with even adults in relationships. You've got to be consistent in how you work. You've got to be congruent with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Congruency is a big thing.
Yeah, and it comes back to this concept of maps, of making sense of the world. And in our context of conflict resolution, people have a relationship, and often the worst conflict is where people have been in an intense relationship, whether it's been an intense friendship or a partnership, and then something changes and the relationship is shifted, so the map doesn't work anymore.
No.
It's not what used to happen when this happened, and that can be really distressing and upsetting and disconcerting.
Those maps was now blurring a little bit into frames, but maps are our view of reality. It's our Navman's map of the streets and everything. That's what our reality is, that.
Yeah.
But you look up and you see everything else. So we have a subset of reality is how we operate.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you want to expand on that a little bit more, Ken?
That gets back to perceptions a lot there, doesn't it? So if you listen to Perceptions podcast, you'd realise that our perceptions is our truth. So our map is based on our perceptions.
Yeah.
So it's a set of perceptions which give us a map of the world, how we operate within that world, but it's only a subset of the actual world itself. Our responses to our map, and that's how we operate, is responding to that reality, not actual reality itself. So when things go askew with this map with other people, then that's where conflict can come along, because I expect this to happen, it doesn't. Now, did that cause me grief? Did it cause me embarrassment, humiliation, whatever? If it does, then I can react accordingly, and that can start more conflict. So if we get ourselves out of sync with each other, it goes back to the 4 people in a relationship theory here.
Maybe talk a little bit about that, and that's something that people learn in the transformative relationship mediation course.
Yeah. The 4 people in a relationship are these. There's number 1, me, what I think I do. Then it's what I think you do. Then the third person is what you think you do. And the fourth being what you think I do. Now, if they're in alignment, guess what? Happy relationship. If they're out of alignment, this is where the maps or frames or what have you get screwed over and causes issues.
Yeah, so let's go through that again slowly. So there's me, and what I do, and then me and what I think I do. What you think I do.
There's what I think I do, what I think you do.
Yeah.
There's what you think you do and what you think I do.
Yeah.
So I think that, for argument's sake, if I was to walk in and say, "Hi, Joe, make us a coffee," and you will, and I come in the house and go, "Hi, Joe, make us a coffee," and you go, whatever, and I don't get the coffee.
What did your last slave die up?
Something like that, yeah. Then that particular projection frame, whatever, is now out of kilter, and that can cause, what have I done wrong?
Yeah, that's right. You're a little bit shocked. What happened? Yeah.
What went wrong there? Yeah. And that's where a lot of these issues come in. So the 4 people in a relationship is a good way of looking at how it works.
Yeah. And when there's a lot of pressure to close the gap between you and what I think you should do.
I mean, yeah. I've seen quite a few issues where one party expects the other does this and that's all they're supposed to do. Yeah. The other one going, "No, we're a partnership. You're supposed to help."
Yeah.
So they've got that misalignment there, and that's where the conflict's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost talking about role expectation and that, I suppose.
That is with the 4 people in a relationship, yeah.
Yeah. But in some ways it's maybe even a little bit less conscious. Is it something that you think people are always necessarily aware of?
No, it's subconscious, not conscious.
Yeah.
They might verbalise it occasionally. "I expect you to do this."
Or you're not doing that right, or you're not,
When someone says, "I expect you to do this," usually the response is, "Yeah, what else do you expect?" or whatever. No, you're right on that.
Yeah. And I think often that's made up of, once again, it goes back to perception. So how did your father behave in a relationship as a child? Are you expecting your partner to behave in the same way, or your mother, or whatever? And we certainly see that happens where everything was fine and lovely equal relationship and all of that, but then the children come along and suddenly there's the role of mother or father has changed. So suddenly the expectations of you.
And the ones I find more amusing than anything else is when people first get together, the guy expects the new partner to do everything Mum used to do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work out that
way. No, absolutely. And look, in a healthy relationship dynamic, you'll talk about these things and
communication's core.
Communicate about them and develop an agreement about what it is and isn't that works for each of you in the relationship. In a healthy relationship, there might be efforts to make the other person do it one way or another, and that's where we can have all sorts of trouble. So
exactly. The takeaway here is your map is like your Navman thing. It's a representation of the world, but it's not the world. That's how we operate.
So don't be the person following the Navman into the water. Look out the window a little bit as well. Remember those stories of people that just followed it and then drove off a pier or whatever?
This road's a bit bumpy.
Yeah,
exactly.
Put the wipers on. You have to still check. Sometimes maps change. Sometimes the territory outside changes.
That's it. To change your response, you got to change your map.
Yeah,
If your map's not working for you, you've got to change it. How do you change it? That's the way you perceive things. You've got to get a better understanding of what you perceive to be true, false, or indifferent, so you can tailor the map, fine-tune it, and then you work better in the world.
Yeah.
In that perceived world.
Yeah, absolutely. So maps are helpful. We're not saying they're not. Use your map, but also continue to check that it's still valid, still current, doesn't need upgrading. And if it does, then what you need to do is just be more consciously aware of what you're doing until your new map forms and becomes a habit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, no, excellent. So thank you, Ken. As always, we'll release this as a Mediator Musings podcast and put a link to it in the Mediator Musings Facebook group, where we'd love you to make comments. If anything, if this has brought up thoughts about any of these concepts, please share. If you've got other concepts or ideas that you'd like us to have a conversation about, to expand on, please let us know. Or if you'd like to be part of one of these conversations, we'd love to have a chat with you as well.
We sure would.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to follow the podcast so that you can be notified of the latest episodes, and come and find us on Facebook. Search for Mediator Musing. You can share your thoughts about this episode and any other insights that you have about the art and science of mediation. You can also ask questions and give us prompts for future episodes. Come and find us on Mediator Musings group on Facebook. See you soon.